Finally, the Chevrolet Corvette has gone mid-engine, and finally, Chevy's thrown me the keys to this one. This is a 2021 C8 Corvette Convertible, and it's time to go driving. Oh, didn't see you there. Well, because this is a convertible, I think we should drop the top. But first, ooh, that's a very satisfying sound. Push this button over here on the door, and the power folding convertible top drops in just 16 seconds. Now, of course, you can do this at speeds up to 30 miles an hour, but while we're sitting here, may as well knock this out first. Bing, bing, good to go. Let's go. Now let's talk about, right away, the objective stats and figures around this car, because they are insane, to be frank. 0 to 60 happens in 3 seconds flat, though some publications say it'll do the deed in 2.9. Quarter mile, 11.3 seconds, and it traps 121 miles per hour, which is insane for the base model Vet. Of course, once you learn about what's behind me here, this mid-mounted engine, it starts to make sense. It's a 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8, push rods, mind you. It sounds like that. It's called the LT2. With this performance exhaust, it makes 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. And of course, that power is set to be rear wheels. Now, Corvettes, as of late, have always had great weight distribution, because even with the engine up front, they had a mid-mounted transaxle. Of course, now the engine's back there, this is a mid-engine sports car, the weight distribution's even better, which means that even with 495 horsepower on tap, it has immense traction. And that power put-down ability is also thanks to the transmission. Now, sadly, as a manual transmission diehard, it does pain me to say there's no manual in the C8 Vet. Of course, the consolation prize isn't that bad, because the sole transmission option here is an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic, and wow, is it good! You see, in order to keep the price point of the Vet down, after all, this more or less has the same base price as the outgoing C7 Vet. General Motors had to decide, how do we keep costs down in making just one transmission? After all, the mid-mounted engine, they make an all-new transmission. Having just one transmission simplifies things. So, GM got together with longtime supplier Checkmate and built this dual clutch. And it's fabulous. Instantaneous upshifts and downshifts. Beautiful gear spacing, nice and tight gear spacing. And it really makes the experience of wringing out this engine very satisfying. I want to bring up the stats and the figures right away, because they show how seriously impressive the engineering behind this car is. The Corvette has long been a performance bargain, and the C8 proudly continues that tradition. But unlike previous Vets, where you can make the argument, well, it was slightly bargain bin, with this C8, that's absolutely not the case. The way this car looks, the way this car feels, the way this car drives, is every bit as exotic and satisfying as anything out of Europe. And when you consider that the base price for a C8 Coupe is just over 60 grand, credit where it's due, that's amazing. Now granted, this is a convertible, as you can see. There's a slight price premium with that, with the privilege of open air driving. Base price, 67 grand. Still, absolute bargain. If you look at a 67 grand Boxster Z51 gets Michelin summer rubber, the Pilot Sport 4S, a pretty nice street tire. Behind these wheels are much larger Z51 specific brakes. The fronts are an inch larger than the base model. That's huge. Those brakes also get Z51 cooling ducts, which up here is a godsend. Speaking of cooling, the Z51 pack also gives you upgraded engine and transmission cooling. It's this extra radiator setup. It's really slick. It not only helps keep the car cool on the racetrack, Chevrolet says you can pound this thing on the track all day and it won't overheat. It also actually helps the car warm up faster, which is a nice virtue in and of itself. And if you watch this channel for quite a while, you know I'm very hard on cars, especially on the racetrack. If a car can overheat, I will make it overheat. And this thing, oil temps are steady at 190 no matter how hard I pound this thing up here. Props, GM, that's awesome. Because that was absolutely not the case with the outgoing C7 vet. Anyone who's driven a Z06 knows what I mean. And then there's a Z51 Performance exhaust. Good for 5 horsepower and good enough to wake up your neighbors. Sorry for the cold starts. With that said, as glorious as this car sounds, and as brutal as it is on the cold starts, it's actually quite mellow when you really rev the nuts off this thing. I had a couple friends, I gave them ride-alongs with this car, and they both said the same thing. It sounds really gnarly and idle, but it's actually kind of mellow up top. I wish, especially with the convertible top down, that there were just a few more decibels to drive some red line. Sweet sound. Now granted, this is a Corvette, the aftermarket's enormous. Aftermarket mufflers will be extremely plentiful, that's the nature of the beast. But for a performance exhaust, I wish it was just a hair louder when you're driving it hard. That's a nitpick though, that's a nitpick. The last one the Z51 pack gives you, and I told you a lot of stuff, is a Z51 specific suspension calibration. And it's amazing. It's a non-adjustable suspension, but with bespoke shock tuning. And it really just irons out the bumps up here. It keeps all 4 tires firmly planted into the pavement. It's very confidence-inspiring. It has a bit of roll, which is what you want. You can feel what the tires are doing. The other bit of confidence from the Z51 suspension is the fact they've intentionally tuned a bit of understeer into it, which for a road car is what you want. It means you can get near the limit and feel safe and confident. Because with a mid-engine car, it's all too easy to make it snappy and scary. So I think they've done a good job here. In fact, it's a bit funny. This feels more stable and safe compared to even the outgoing C7 Corvette. I reviewed both the C7 Grand Sport and the ZR1. They both had a tendency towards oversteer, and they were always kind of leery and edgy, and that's very fun. But this is just kind of a different experience. Despite being mid-engine, it feels easier to get in this car and push it really hard. That said, there's a bit of a caveat to this experience. Because GM's excellent Magna-Ride suspension, which is part of the FE4 package, is a standalone option. It has been my experience that with General Motors performance products, whether it's a Chevy or a Cadillac, if you want the ultimate road-going suspension for your GM vehicle, you do have to opt for Magna-Ride. Now the FE4 package gives you the Magna-Ride suspension as well as the Performance Traction Management System. That's an adjustable race-like traction control. It's one of the best systems available on a road car. I would absolutely encourage you to tick that box if you're building your vet. In fact, this test car has another option that's about $1,500, the nose lift. You can get rid of that and swap in Magnaride instead. Pro tip. On previous Corvette models, the nose was really long and low and scraped on everything. Anyone who's driven a C5, 6, or C7 knows that. However, because the bed is now mid-engine, the nose is very short. It doesn't snag on every single dip or driveway like older Corvettes did. So while the nose lift feature is cool, you just don't need it. If you're going to spend the extra $1,500, get the Magnaride. Trust me. Man, this thing is good. Now the other important option is the 2LT option. That's really all your interior niceties. You can get a base bed, a 2LT, or a 3LT. Opt for at least a 2LT. 3LT, that's up to you, but 2LT is really kind of a nice sweet spot. It's also $5,000, I believe. That gives you extended leather interior, so there's a beautiful black and tan combo in this particular car. It also gives you head-up display, very, very cool, along with this 8-inch infotainment system. Now, GM is rolling this out to a lot of their higher dollar vehicles. It was actually in a Tahoe that I reviewed on this channel earlier as well. Very nice system. Good, simple, straightforward interface. A mixture of buttons, knobs, and a touch screen, which is what you want. You ride them out of redundancies, makes it really easy to use while you're driving. And for 2021, it's paired with wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. And with 2LT, you also get wireless phone charging, which is right here. This holds your phone in even over 1G, which is pretty cool. Those are the two must-have options, in my opinion. Z51 and at least 2LT for the interior. Whether you want to go for Magnaride, it's up to you. Whether you want to go for 3LT and get it fully loaded, also up to you. But those two really make this experience. Now granted, that's over $11,000 in options and brings the base price of the thing's basement to $76,000. But still, for what you're getting, the way this looks, the way this feels, the way this drives, it's an amazing value. Now I'm going to back off for a second. And when you slow down, this is also where you can really enjoy the C8. Because the Z51 suspension that's amazing up here on a winding road is also surprisingly comfortable. Sure, it's firm, it's never stiff, it's never harsh. It's a firm suspension calibration, but it feels really nice. The 8-speed dual clutch automatic, again, when you back off, it is amazingly smooth. And of course, a small block Chevy V8 is a very, very smooth engine in and of itself. Then there's this interior. Like I said, with a 2LT trim, this is a really, really nice interior. It is far and away the best Corvette interior I've ever seen in any Corvette model. If you covered this badge and told someone who wasn't necessarily clued in that this was a Porsche Boxster, they would believe you. I'm serious. Sure, there are some plasticky bits right here, for example. It's kind of like a faux chrome trim made of plastic. But everything else, covered in leather. Feels really nice, feels really substantial. And the design is really cool. I like the shifter controls down here because this actually feels just like the Lamborghini Huracan Peppermonte Spider that I reviewed in this channel. But the dash layout, very cool, very cockpit inspired, very interesting to look at. And then there's this digital display here. No analog gauges, fully digital, big screen right here, completely configurable depending on what you do down here with the drive mode selector. So if you want to have just a basic gauge for tachometer, speedometer, and an MPG gauge, put it over in Tour. It also chills out the exhaust. Put it in sport mode like I have it now. It gives you more instrumentation, more data. Put it over here into track. It gives you even more data. And this is very configurable. It shows you oil temp, oil pressure, transmission temp, what the electronically controlled limited slip differential is doing, oil pressure, anything you ever want to know for performance driving, this car can tell you, which is really, really cool. As an overall package, I'm blown away by what the C8 Corvette offers. The driving experience is sublime. The more I drive this car, the more I really, really like it. It's so easy to get in and hustle it, but at the same time, if you don't want to do that, it's also comfortable and practical. Now sure, it's a very low slung sports car. Getting into and out of it might be a bit tricky if you have bad knees, but that comes with the territory of any Corvette. And the practicality is what really surprises me here. With the engine sitting behind me, General Motors dealers have somehow figured out a way to put the engine, a transmission back there, as well as fold back this power hardtop and give you a trunk. That's incredible. There's also a frunk as well because there's no longer an engine up there. So this thing can actually very comfortably bring a travel bag to the airport or do the grocery run or whatever you got to do. And that's important because the Corvette has always kind of been the everyman sports car. It's a car that has an attainable base price. If you bust your ass for a long time to save up your money, any American can conceivably buy one of these, which is really inspirational. It does also have that practicality. If you wanted to, you could drive this every day. But when you want to grab it by the scruff of its neck and really enjoy it, it reminds you can do that too. And so it really is kind of all things to all people, and I really appreciate that. Now with that said, this might not be hardcore enough for most hardcore track day junkies out there. But of course, that's what future Z06 and ZR1 models cater to. Overall, I'm so impressed with this car because it can do so much for so many people. You can feel like a badass. You can feel like Captain America driving your mid-engine Corvette around the neighborhood. When you come here to a winding road, you'll school any sports car you want. And shoot, even at a track day, it'll do the same thing. Locals out here are finally starting to track these cars, and the lap times they're producing are incredible. Though not entirely surprising for a 193-mile-an-hour sports car that is 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. It has all the weight where you want it. I think for Chevy's first ever production mid-engine Corvette, it's a home run. It's a slam dunk. And it makes me really damn excited because if the base model is this good, please, oh my God, bring on the Z06, but I cannot wait to drive that. Alright everyone, I think that's all I got for this video. I've been talking for a long, long time. This is an amazing sports car. Go test drive one, you will not be disappointed. Definitely the Z51 pack. Trust. In any case, guys, my name is Jake. You've been watching Grind, Brake, Next Repeat. And I'll see you guys next time where I go do more fun things with cars.